If you guys play Dynasty Fantasy Football, then this is the video for you. We are going to be breaking down my top 15 quarterbacks and tight ends, Cornerstone rankings, top 20 to 24 running backs and wide receivers, Cornerstone rankings, baking in the long-term outlook of these players, talking about how they can appreciate and value what we've seen so far from them after the first month or so of the NFL season. So if you like content like this, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. Redraft Dynasty, we got you covered with whatever you need. If you want access to our full list of rankings, the Dynasty Rankings Manifesto with our rookie rankings for 2024, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, bucketed rankings like these Cornerstone rankings today, check out the site, flockfantasy.com, promo code FSC for 30% off. But now let's get into it. All right, so what we're going to be doing in today's video is I need you guys to really listen to this part, because last time I did this video, people skipped ahead and they didn't know what I was talking about, and they were like, where the hell is Christian McCaffrey? Where the hell is this guy? Cornerstone rankings means that I'm setting an age threshold for what I believe a foundational player is at every given position. So the thresholds that I have chosen are quarterbacks under the age of 29, so 28 or younger, running backs under the age of 25, so 24 or younger, wide receivers 26 or younger, and tight ends 27 or younger. Basically, my definition is that, are you comfortable projecting a 3-year window out of these players where they're still going to be in their prime, they're not going to be aging? Yeah, they might lose some value as they get older, but they're still going to be productive dynasty assets. So when I get to the running backs, if you don't see Christian McCaffrey, it's because he's over the age of 24. So let's start it off with the quarterback position. Again, I play mostly in Superflex formats. The trade values that you guys can see along the side of the tiers is Superflex trade value, and I'll talk about, kind of varying differences in one quarterback leagues and in tight end premium leagues and all that kind of stuff. So foundational quarterbacks, you guys can see them on the screen there. Tier 1 and Tier 2, I don't think I really need to explain anything. I'm sure you guys know that Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow are extremely valuable. I hope you bought low on Joe Burrow while he was dealing with his injury, because that door has probably slammed shut now. You guys can see the price tags that it takes to acquire these guys, and I'm being dead serious when I say 4 first-rounders plus for Patrick Mahomes, for Josh Allen, 3 first-rounders for Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow. These guys should be that valuable on your open market, and if you can acquire them for less than that, it means that they are good buys, and your league is undervaluing the quarterback position in Superflex formats. But the Tier 3 quarterbacks, as you guys can see, also an unchanged tier from my preseason rankings. We knew what Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, and Trevor Lawrence could do on any given week coming into the season. Trevor Lawrence was ranked here preseason for the same reasons that he's ranked here now, which is a young ascending quarterback. He's a top 5 graded passer in his 3rd NFL season right now. Maybe he looks to start to turn the corner as far as this Jacksonville offense becoming an elite NFL unit, but I will say these 3 guys are definitely cornerstone assets in the quarterback range there. Then we get into the Tier 4 of quarterbacks, which is really where all the changes and all the debates start to happen. There's a lot of shakeup from the guys that I had pre-NFL season here. So the first one is Anthony Richardson, who's going to be out a couple weeks, but what we've seen so far from Anthony Richardson is that he looks as advertised, right? Everything that we kind of knew about Anthony Richardson, if you guys watched him at Florida, was, his passing metrics are not great. He's only averaging 6.9 yards per attempt. He's 30th in PFF passing grade right now. Only Zach Wilson, Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, and Bryce Young have been worse according to their PFF passing grade. But what we've seen out of Richardson and why he's on the rise right now is 4 rushing touchdowns, 40-plus rushing yards in the 2 full games that he's played. Looks like Justin Fields did as a second-year player, only this time we're talking about a 21-year-old in his first 5 NFL games or his first 4 NFL games. That doesn't sound like a lot. You might be like, oh, look what's happening to Justin Fields right now. But when you're a rookie, you usually look lost, and he does not look lost right now. He doesn't look great. He doesn't look perfect, but he definitely looks like he belongs in the NFL, like he can be a productive playmaker in the league for many years to come. They have a good infrastructure, good coaching staff, good offensive line. Now he has Jonathan Taylor back. Of course, he himself is injured, but going forward, I think we're talking about a top 10, top 12 startup pick in Superflex formats, and I love Anthony Richardson going forward. Tua Tagovailoa is the next guy that's definitely on the rise from where I had him in the summer. In hindsight, if health was the only reason we were off this guy, he probably should have been higher ranked among the consensus in the industry. There was times that you could see this guy fall to the 4th round of startups, and he has been pretty much as advertised as what we saw from him last year when he was on the field, which is the weapons, the coaching, the scheme that he plays in, his own talent all of that contributes to Tua Tagovailoa putting out top 12 quarterback type of production. And Tua Tagovailoa has to be on the rise from a dynasty perspective. Yeah, he still has these injury concerns, but he is definitely a guy that you want to invest in. We can't predict injuries around here, so we're not going to try. Head injuries are difficult, and that's something you got to bake in. But I still think, top 20 startup pick is what we're talking about with Tua Tagovailoa. CJ Stroud, he jumps Bryce Young as the dynasty rookie quarterback 2 from the 2023 class for me because he's simply been much better than Bryce Young. He set the NFL record for pass attempts to start an NFL career. He had like 180 pass attempts or whatever so far without throwing an interception. Top 15 graded passer on PFF right now, currently has a 7-0 touchdown to interception ratio, 4th in the NFL right now in yards per attempt. Let me repeat that. He's a rookie quarterback on the Houston Texans, a team that we did not expect to be very good, and he's 4th in the NFL in yards per attempt. Yeah, Nico Collins and Tank Dell and Dameon Pierce are decent, weapons that he has around him, but he's elevating their play as well. So I've been very, very impressed with CJ Stroud. He has to be a borderline first-round caliber startup pick at this point in time. Kyler Murray, the last guy of this tier, he's still the best rebuilding buy in all of Dynasty, in my opinion, and he's slated to come back probably around week 7 to 10, kind of give or take. The Cardinals are a little bit frisky, right? We've seen Josh Dobbs play well, and as of right now, the Cardinals' plan to tank for Caleb Williams is not going according to schedule. Right now, the Cardinals and Texans, who's the first-round picks that they possess, who entering the season were the odds-on favorites to have the first and second overall pick, are not in the Caleb Williams zone anymore, and they're not even really in the Drake May zone at this point in time. So the reality of this situation is if the Arizona Cardinals are picking, let's say, 6 and 9 in the NFL draft this year, Kyler's not going anywhere. He's going to stay in Arizona because they don't have the option of drafting Caleb Williams anymore because, the Panthers are a worse team, the Bears are a worse team, the Broncos are a worse team, the Vikings right now are a worse team. So it's very possible that the Arizona Cardinals are going to play their way out of Caleb Williams, which is probably good news for Kyler Murray because that means he gets to stay put with the team that drafted him, with the team that extended him, and that's going to be good news for him once he's back on the field. So if you guys are a rebuilder and you're looking to shed some point production off of your team, sell on some productive pieces and go after Kyler Murray, a guy who could be a foundational quarterback for you. And thankfully right now he's not putting up any points, so he can help you tank your own 2024 first-round pick as well. Next, we get into the Tier 5 quarterbacks. So this will be the tier that we use to close out this area of the Cornerstone rankings, the quarterback position. Deshaun Watson on the fall a little bit right now. The first sign of life for Deshaun Watson came against the Tennessee Titans prior to his injury in week 4 before the bye week that they had. I'm still willing to take Deshaun Watson with a top 24 startup pick right now, but he has to slide down a little bit because within his range of outcomes was him looking like he did in Houston. And he doesn't look like he did in Houston. He looks better than he did last year with the Cleveland Browns, but he doesn't look like he did in Houston. So for me, the clock has started on Deshaun Watson. By week 10, week 13, I want to see this guy look like he did in Houston. I don't want him to look like an average quarterback because that's not how he's being paid. That's not what the Cleveland Browns expect from him. And if that doesn't happen, he's probably going to slide down my rankings even more, below some of the guys that I'm going to talk about in a second, because a guy like Brock Purdy, for example, is on the rise. And you could call Brock Purdy a system quarterback all you want, but Brock Purdy is averaging 9.3 yards per attempt this season, 9-0 touchdown interception ratio. He's performing at an elite level. He has the weapons, he has the protection, he has the play caller. None of that stuff's going anywhere anytime soon. And this guy's a second-year quarterback who was a 7th-round pick. So we're talking about a guy that not only did he come out his rookie season and play well, he's continuing that into his second season. And yeah, anybody can perform in this system, but not everybody can perform at the level that Brock Purdy is performing. How come Trey Lance couldn't perform like this? How come Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't performed like this before? Brock Purdy is a good player. Stop, hating on Brock Purdy. He is the new Jared Goff. Remember when Jared Goff was in Los Angeles and we thought he was this great dynasty quarterback? That is what we're getting with Brock Purdy right now. The system, the weapons, the play calling, everything is aligning for Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy was one of the biggest steals in dynasty drafts this year. In startups, I kept taking him every time we did startup mock drafts on our live streams. He was like a 10th round pick in Superflex startup leagues. I was screaming to draft this guy constantly. He is my highest rostered quarterback in all of my dynasty leagues right now, and I feel pretty proud to say that I called this one. Solid long-term quarterback too going forward, and a cornerstone guy to build around. Bryce Young, first 2 games, were check down Charlie. He looked horrid in the first 2 games of his NFL career. He is starting to improve a little, so that's definitely encouraging. But this offense is so anemic. The protection's not good. The play calling's not good. The weapons aren't good. If you're in a long-term rebuild, definitely go send some offers for Bryce Young, because I do think, similar to what I said with Kyler Murray, he's going to help you tank your own pick, because the production's not going to be very good this year. If you do have Bryce Young and you're worried, just hold. Don't sell low on him. I think he is going to bounce back no problem once they get some weapons around him, whether it's in the offseason or whether it's during the season. They've been rumored to be in talks for trading for somebody. Justin Fields, a guy that has been on the fall and has been the topic of a lot of conversation in the dynasty space, because in his range of outcomes was that Justin Fields was going to go from this back-end first-round startup pick to the next Jalen Hurts, and that has definitely not happened. The Bears, conversely to the Cardinals, absolutely will be in play for Caleb Williams, absolutely will be in play for Drake May, whether it's their first-rounder or it's the Carolina Panthers' first-rounder, because as of right now, they hold the number 1 and number 2 overall pick in the draft. And I can tell you for a fact that if Justin Fields leads them to the number 1 or the number 2 overall pick, then he is going to be off this roster. They're going to trade him away for whatever they can get for him, 3rd round pick, 2nd round pick, whatever. Justin Fields can put up fantasy points. We've seen that the last 2 games, but job security question marks, uncertainty around what the Bears are going to do if they have high picks, that makes him on a shorter leash now than he was in the preseason, so he has to slide down the rankings. Maybe he goes to a new team if they draft Caleb Williams, but that's not a good thing. You don't want the team that drafted him to give up on him after 3 years. That's never a good sign, even if they could be wrong. You definitely don't want that. And then there was a couple guys here that didn't quite make the cut for my top 15 cornerstone quarterbacks, mainly because we have so many great guys that are under the age of 28. Jordan Love, completion percentage is piss right now, but he's performed okay, I would say, to start his Green Bay Packers tenure. Sam Howell definitely has the upside to climb these ranks. Also an upside swing I was very much in favor of this dynasty offseason, so I feel good about that one because I think he's gained value. I think Sam Howell has shown more than he hasn't shown, if that makes any sense. He's shown you moments where the arm talent, the mobility, the tools that he has have performed, but we've also seen performances like the Buffalo Bills game where he threw 4 interceptions, but for the most part, I think over the first 5 games of the season, he's been a plus in terms of what you expected out of Sam Howell. So let's move on to the running back position in the Cornerstone rankings here. And again, I'm talking about age 24 or younger running backs, so do not go to the comments section and yell at me that I don't have Christian McCaffrey or Austin Eckler or Tony Pollard or Saquon Barkley. Those guys are older than 25, so they will not be on this list. This is Cornerstone assets, and I would make the argument, to be honest, that there's no such thing as a Cornerstone running back. Usually, when you have running back production on your team, you probably want to be in some kind of competitive window, whether it's just a 1-year punt and you're going to compete next year, or you're going to be a competitive team and try and win the championship. But there is a couple cornerstone running backs that I do feel comfortable holding for multiple years. And the first one is Bijan Robinson, who is in a tier of his own. He is worth so much more than any dynasty running back, in my opinion. I think he is worth 3 first-rounders, even in Superflex formats. He is the only running back, in my opinion, that you can project comfortably for 5+ years of dominance. The RB1 in the 2023 NFL draft. His situation is only going to get better, in my opinion. Desmond Ridder, whether he plays better or whether he's out on his ass, that's probably going to be a better quarterback situation. It's very clear to me that Bijan Robinson is already one of the most physically gifted running backs in the NFL. He makes a highlight reel play or multiple every single game, top 5 graded runner by PFF, and second in the NFL in targets at the running back position. So he's getting used as a receiver a ton, leading the team in missed tackles force, leading the position in missed tackles force per attempt. He is the wins over replacement running back in Dynasty that you want if you're a contending team looking to make a championship push, or if you have a lot of depth on your roster and you're looking to upgrade to a superstar. This is the guy that you go after if you're in a competitive window. If you want somebody to carry you for the next 3 to 5 years at the running back position, Bijan Robinson is your guy. So tier 2 running backs, and there's a lot of discussion with this range because I think you could have any one of these guys at RB2 behind Bijan Robinson. Breece Hall is the guy that I have at RB2, and mainly due to what we saw from him this past week. He's healthy, he's running well, and situationally, he's in a bit of a worse spot than Bijan Robinson because even after we get Aaron Rodgers back, presumably next year, he's going to be an aging quarterback. We don't know what's going to happen with Breece Hall, in 2025. Only 2 years left on his rookie deal still for Breece Hall as well, because he was a second-round pick. This is his second year. So after this season, he only has 2 more years on his rookie deal, as opposed to Bijan will have 4 more years left on his rookie deal because he's a rookie this year. He was a first-round pick, so he has a 5th-year option. Still an elite dynasty running back, though, Breece Hall, one of the few guys that you can build around in a 1-year punt or a 2-year rebuild. Definitely my dynasty RB2, and I think it's actually close to having a tier between Breece Hall and the rest of these guys, in my opinion, than these guys being the dynasty running back 2 that I'm about to talk about. So Jonathan Taylor, one of the better 2 to 3 year projections. He's an elite talent. He has an exciting young quarterback who obviously is very mobile. Fresh 3-year extension to stay in Indianapolis with Shane Steichen. I would buy him now before we see the eruption, the explosion that I think is going to happen down the stretch of this season. So Jonathan Taylor is my dynasty RB3. Then we have De'Von Achane, who has skyrocketed all the way up from my dynasty running back 18 entering the season to my dynasty running back 4 right now. Outstanding start to his career. A ridiculous 94.7 PFF rushing grade, is the best in the NFL right now. 12.1 yards per carry. 12.1 yards per carry to start his career. 5 touchdowns, 15 missed tackles forced on just 38 carries. Achane is hurt right now. He's already dealing with something, and he's a possible candidate to go to IR per the most recent reports that we've heard. And I'm a little nervous about that. I will say, De'Von Achane's a small running back. This is something that we had concerns with him coming out of Texas A&M. How many times is he going to hold up to a 15-plus carry workload? And it looks like he's already banged up to start his career. Hopefully, injuries are not a trend for him, because he's absolutely electric to watch. He's a perfect fit for this offense, and the Miami Dolphins are better when he's on the field. But I will say, the fact that he's a little bit smaller, this was a tougher part of his evaluation, makes me a little bit nervous, and that's why I don't think you can have him RB2 in Dynasty over Breece Hall, for example. So Jahmyr Gibbs is the final guy of this tier. He has shown us the great plays, right? Especially in his first game, he showed us what he can do with the ball in his hands. David Montgomery will be a pest, no doubt about that, but this is Dynasty we're talking about. We're investing in a long-term player, not the short-term situation. For the rest of the season, I'm a believer that Jahmyr Gibbs can bounce back. I believe he can take more of the rushing work away from David Montgomery, get more receiving work. I don't think this is DeAndre Swift 2.0, but I do believe the workload split is going to be a problem for him his rookie season, and he'll probably ascend in value after his rookie season, although David Montgomery probably will be there next year as well. But Jahmyr Gibbs, you're kind of just investing in the talent, probably not going to give you top 10, top 5 running back production this year, maybe not even next year, but a guy that I do think by year 2, year 3 can really start to come into his own and be a very good option for you. So if you're in a 1-year punt, I think Jahmyr Gibbs makes a lot of sense in that situation. Tier 3 running backs here, Travis Etienne and Kenneth Walker. You can make the argument that they should be above Jahmyr Gibbs if you're looking for short-term production, but it's pretty easy to see why these guys are solid, right? I would give up a first-round pick plus a small piece for these type of assets, right? Etienne is a 2 to 3 year window where he's going to be a back-end RB1 or better potentially. The Jags offense could really turn it on here as well down the stretch of the season, and I absolutely love that for Travis Etienne. He just had the best game of his career this past week. Kenneth Walker was on bye this past week, but he's also been really good. Big runs, explosive plays, breaking tackles. Zach Charbonnet is a concern that's probably not going away, but Kenneth Walker is a good enough ball player to get back-end RB1 usage still. And then this is where it gets ugly. So those were my top, 7 Dynasty Cornerstone running backs. This is where it gets ugly. The tier 4 running backs, I would say between the guys that I just talked about and the tier 4 running backs, you could throw all of your high-end win now guys in there. Your Saquon Barkleys, your Tony Pollards, your Austin Ecklers, guys like that. McCaffrey obviously would be up a little bit higher than that. Because it gets a little bit ugly here in tier 4. With Cornerstone rankings at quarterback, wide receiver, and tight end, I have no problem ranking a guy like Bryce Young high, because even though he's got 1 year of down production probably as his rookie season, it's not a big deal for his long-term outlook. But with running backs, I factor in a lot more how much you can help me right now. Even though this is Cornerstone rankings, the running back position is very short-term. It's very shelf life dependent. If you can get an RB1 for the rest of this season, it's going to have value in Dynasty, whether that running back is 29 or 22, or he's an undrafted free agent, or he was a first-round pick. It's going to have value regardless. So I did factor in what these guys can do for me this year a lot more at running back than I did at the other positions. So let's talk about DeAndre Swift. Long-term, do I like him? Not really, because I don't think he's going to stay in Philadelphia. I think he's going to play this year, and they're going to let him walk in free agency because they don't like to pay running backs, but he's a low-end RB1 for the rest of the season, and he's still young, and we know he's talented. So that's why I have him this high. James Cook, 2 years left on his rookie deal after this year, tied to Josh Josh Allen in the Buffalo Bills offense. He's an up and down high-end RB2, mid RB2 from a redraft perspective. Then we have Dameon Pierce, who's a great player, ascending offense, 2 more years of team control here as a 4th-round pick. He probably doesn't have a whole lot of job security, but I think they would have invested in the running back position in this past year's draft if they weren't satisfied with Dameon Pierce. Then we have Isaiah Pacheco, who recently has made a lot of strides in terms of his workload the last 2 games. Probably a dynasty sell high if people are going to vault this guy all the way up to a top 10 dynasty running back. But a second-year running back attached to Patrick Mahomes gets better as an NFL player. Doesn't really seem shocking that he should rise in dynasty value because he looks better this year than he did last year. He's getting a better workload than he did last year, and he could be, an RB1 for the rest of this redraft season, right? He could be a low-end RB1, high-end RB2 in the offense that he plays in, and that could have value for him for the next 2 to 3 years. These NFL teams are getting smart. You hit an Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th round, they're not going to just rush out and draft a second-round running back next year because it's a decent running back class. They'll probably stick with Isaiah Pacheco because these teams are wising up about the running back value of that position. So Javonte Williams is the last guy of this tier, and he's the projection of this tier. As he gets healthier, I believe he'll get better. He's at risk of going the way of Cam Akers and J.K. Dobbins, but I still believe in the Javonte Williams that I saw his time at North Carolina, his rookie season before he tore his ACL as a second-year player. He has what it takes to be a top 5 dynasty running back, and I believe by the end of the 2023 season, he can get there with a strong finish. It's just difficult right now to project that, knowing his health situation coming off of a multi-ligament ACL tear. So the tier 5 running backs, and then we will move on to the wide receiver position. We got Bijan Robinson, good back, but he's an RB2 in a middling offense in terms of like a redraft projection. So I can't move him much higher than this. Rachaad White, great workload, but if he doesn't perform this year, he's not going to have that workload very long. So again, good RB2 for the rest of the season, and he's young, and he was a 3rd-round pick, so he has some job security, hypothetically, but I do believe Jason Light will invest in the running back position if Rachaad White doesn't give them what they need. Kyren Williams, I believe, is one of the bigger sells in Dynasty right now. He's a fine option if you're contending. Even though he's young, I just don't think he's going to have a long-term role. I don't expect a long and flourishing career out of a 5th-round rookie who's 194 pounds, ran in the 4.7s, isn't very efficient. Despite this second-year breakout candidate season that we're seeing, I think that the Rams will invest in the running back position next offseason. So Kyren Williams, if you have him, keep him and use him. If you don't need him, if he's on a rebuilding roster of yours, probably sell him off in favor of a Javonte Williams type, and maybe Javonte Williams plus is what you can get out of Kyren right now. Zach Charbonnet can play. I don't know a whole lot about Zach Charbonnet outside of the fact that he was a good prospect and he can play, because I have no idea how this backfield split is going to go going forward. But knowing that I know he can play, he's a great young back. Even though he's stuck behind Kenneth Walker, he's going to have dynasty value. So that's basically my opinion on Zach Charbonnet. He's a good bet for if you guys are a 2-year rebuild or whatever, you can probably sell Kyren Williams for Zach Charbonnet, let him sit on your bench, let him kind of collect experience in the NFL, and maybe by year 3, he's the starting back for the Seahawks team or whatever the case is. Maybe he gets traded, or maybe Walker gets traded. We have no idea what's going to happen, but he's a talented player, and I want to invest in him. So the wide receiver portion of this video will probably take a decent amount of time. I will try and go through it as quickly as I can without going way too fast. We're going to start with the first tier of dynasty wide receivers. I will spend absolutely no time on these guys because Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, they've been the top 2 dynasty receivers for a couple years now. Chase and the Bengals were on the downswing for a couple weeks. Hopefully you bought low on Jamar Chase if you were able to, and hopefully you buy Justin Jefferson low in the next coming weeks because he's now on IR with a hamstring injury. These guys are absolute superstars. They are the top of the dynasty landscape. Now we get to the tier 2 wide receivers where there's not much to report here either. CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Olave, A.J. Brown, these guys were all ranked among this group coming into the season, and they've all performed as kind of expected. I would say Garrett Wilson was the one guy that could have maybe ascended into the Chase and Jefferson area because he won Offensive Rookie of the Year last year. Maybe we would have seen a huge breakout season with Aaron Rodgers. Of course, Aaron Rodgers' injury hurts that, and Garrett Wilson's still a guy I'm willing to invest in Dynasty, but short term, he's not going to be as productive as he was going to be with Aaron Rodgers. So not much to report from the tier 2. Then we get to the tier 3 wide receivers. Again, Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith, not much to report there either. They were wide receiver 1s for me entering the year in Dynasty, back-end wide receiver 1s, and nothing has really changed. The big mover in this area is Puka Nacua, right? Puka Nacua has had one of the most outstanding starts to a career that I've ever seen from a wide receiver, that the NFL history has ever seen from a wide receiver. The straw that has broken the camel's back for me, and why I have Puka Nacua ranked this high, because I've been notoriously very hesitant to move him up the dynasty rankings, is I saw him get 11 targets on the same field that Cooper Kupp got 13 targets this past week. So the last detractor of Puka Nacua was, he's not going to do this when Cooper Kupp comes back. This guy is an absurd 61 targets to start his career in 5 games. 61 targets in 5 games is an absolutely ludicrous number for a wide receiver. We all missed on this guy. I missed on this guy. You guys missed on this guy. If you thought Puka Nacua was going to be the best receiver in this class, kudos to you, but you're probably lying. You probably thought he was a day 3 caliber prospect like all of us. He looked average when I watched him on film. It looked like he could do some things, but he couldn't do other things, and he is a perfect fit for the Robert Woods role in this offense, and that is something I definitely did not take into account enough. So apologies to Puka Nacua, but I'm making it right. He's a top 12 dynasty wide receiver for me going forward. Then we get into the tier 4 wide receivers, where there's also some big shakeups here. Drake London was a guy that I had ranked very highly before. I'm sure a lot of people will take issue with me still having Drake London this high, but I think this past week is a perfect example of why you should be aggressive when ranking Drake London. Because since his week 1 donut this season, London has been heating up with a 23% target share. Only 60% of those targets are catchable because Desmond Ridder is dog shit. But a whopping 83% of the Falcons' end zone targets have gone to Drake London. He is the go-to guy for them in the red zone. He's the go-to guy for them on third down. 34% of those targets have gone to Drake London as well. We saw in that last drive against the Houston Texans that he was absolutely peppered. He is an alpha wide receiver, and his quarterback will either get better in Desmond Ridder or he will be out on his ass and he'll have a new quarterback, whether it's Kyler Murray or Justin Fields or Michael Penix or some quarterback in the 2024 class. Either way, I want to invest in the long-term talent of Drake London and the situation getting better, and I believe that will happen this coming offseason at the very latest. So T. Higgins also slides down a little bit given his contract uncertainty with the Bengals, given the fact that he's hurt right now, but I would bump him up a tier back into the Waddle and Smith tier if the Bengals were to give him a contract extension and he gets to stay there playing with Joe Burrow. So he's not, a whole lot going on there, not much different than what we expected. Brandon Aiyuk is another guy that is on the rise for me. I've been above market on Brandon Aiyuk for a number of years now, but he has taken yet another step forward in his career. Only Tyreek Hill has a better PFF receiving grade, has a better yards per route run this season. It feels good to have been a Brandon Aiyuk stan all the way back to his days at Arizona State. I was higher on him in his rookie year. I was higher on him his second year, even though it was tumultuous. Higher on him last year as a bounce-back candidate, as a breakout candidate. And now he is putting on a pretty special 4th season so far in the first month of the year for Brandon Aiyuk. So he is on the rise for me all the way up here alongside your T. Higginses of the world and your Drake Londons of the world. I think you could make the argument I should have him higher than those guys even as well. Next guy that we're going to talk about is currently my Dynasty rookie wide receiver 2 from the 2023 NFL Draft. He was my wide receiver 1 for most of the Dynasty offseason, Jordan Addison of the Minnesota Vikings. Jackson Smith-Njigba started racking up points against Jordan Addison, which is why I eventually made the switch pre-draft to JSN over Jordan Addison. But it's funny sometimes, the further we get away from these guys playing actual football games, the more you can talk yourself out of a guy like Jordan Addison, who is not going to pass the, Dynasty offseason darling, eye test, because he's not big, he's not physical, he's not a super athletic guy, but he just knows how to play ball, and that's what we're seeing from him so far. He's scoring touchdowns, he's making big plays, he's winning on his routes, and we should see a higher target share coming up for Jordan Addison with Justin Jefferson out for the next few weeks. So in my opinion, he's the new Devontae Smith. He's exactly the same type of projection. If you told me that you wanted him over Devontae Smith, I wouldn't even really blame you that much. So Jordan Addison, very young wide receiver, getting very productive so far. And then DK Metcalf is the last guy that closes out this tier. Not a good start to 2023, but he's still a stud wide receiver in his prime. Now let's get into the tier 5 wide receivers here. Christian Watson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Zay Flowers, and Michael Pittman. With Christian Watson, I believe he's still one of the better buys in Dynasty right now, because going off of the rookie year production, what we've seen from him in his limited reps so far this season on Monday Night Football, he was a horse collar tackle away from a monster touchdown. This kid could very easily vault himself all the way up past Drake London into the top 12 Dynasty wide receivers for the rest of the season if he continues playing at a high level. So I like Christian Watson as a buy low right now. Jackson Smith-Njigba, also a pretty decent buy low right now. Rough start to his rookie season relative to guys like Puka Nacua. Obviously, he's not doing that. Jordan Addison and some others like Zay Flowers. Career high, 23% target share pre-bye week, but he was on bye this past week. Maybe a buy low window coming up. Maybe he gets a post-bye rookie bump. If you can sell production from your rebuilding team, for example, maybe you have DJ Moore, maybe you have Michael Pittman Jr. on your rebuilding team and you're trying to offload that point production, go after Jackson Smith-Njigba. See how much more you have to pay on top of those guys, or if at all, maybe you can get him straight up for those players, and he fits a rebuilding roster a lot better than those guys do. So Zay Flowers has had a 30% target share to start his career. Very, very impressive. Looks like a rookie at times with some drops and some miscommunications, but I'm very hopeful he'll turn it on down the stretch as well. So definitely buy low on Zay Flowers. And then with Michael Pittman, 29% target share. Gardner Minshew coming in at quarterback should be good for his immediate production. Just turned 26, so he's a very talented, mid wide receiver 2 in Dynasty. And then we get to the tier 6 wide receivers. I will just quickly rattle these guys off. Jahan Dotson, George Pickens, Nico Collins, DJ Moore, and Jerry Jeudy. All of these guys have either been productive, like DJ Moore, for example, or they're young ascending players that could still climb the ranks, like a Nico Collins, a George Pickens, or a Jahan Dotson. I would say Jahan Dotson's been the least effective so far of this group, and Jerry Jeudy to some degree as well. But I'm confident both of those guys will bounce back. And I think both of them are decent buy lows in Dynasty if you guys are looking for some assets to invest in. So those are my top 24 Cornerstone wide receivers. Let's close out this video with tight ends. I want to try and keep this one under 40 if I can. The tight end position, age 27 or younger, is the definition I'm using for Cornerstone tight end assets. And we're going to start this thing off right with a bang, because if you asked who the Dynasty tight end 1 is, you would probably get 5 different answers from people, because you could make the argument that Andrews and Kelsey are Dynasty tight end 1. Of course, they won't be in this video because they're not Cornerstone tight ends. But you could also make the argument that Sam Laporta is Dynasty tight end 1, or that Kyle Pitts is still Dynasty tight end 1, or that TJ Hawkinson is still Dynasty tight end 1. Any one of those guys, I think, is a reasonable argument to be made. My current overall tight end 1 is Mark Andrews, but my tight end 2 and my tight end 1 of this tier and of these Cornerstone rankings is actually Sam Laporta. He is averaging the most PPR points through the first 5 games of a tight end's career of the last 20 years. You guys can see he's averaging more than Jordan Reed, more than Kyle Pitts, more than Travis Kelce did. Pretty good company, as our buddy Ron Stewart says here. Kyle Pitts is still a good option, but Sam Laporta, I think, has proved more in his short time in the NFL than Kyle Pitts has, and he's proved more target earning abilities in a better team situation. So I do prefer Sam Laporta, going forward in Dynasty to Kyle Pitts, which is something I never thought I would say. Kyle Pitts is one of the best rebuilding tight ends out there, though. He just turned 23 years old. Big games incoming for him if he can have functional quarterback play. As we saw this past week, he led the Falcons in targets, led the Falcons in yards, because Desmond Ridder actually played at a high level. Desmond Ridder's grades went from 51, 43, 44, and 45 in the last 4 games before this week to 86.7. So maybe it's a sign of things to come. Desmond Ridder, of course, is still a young quarterback, but again, if he's not going to be any good going forward, he should have a better quarterback situation. The most important thing that I've seen from Desmond Ridder and Arthur Smith so far is the fact that they've thrown 32, 38, 31, and 37 pass attempts the past 4 games, which is way, way more than we expected out of Desmond Ridder and the Falcons offense. So that's encouraging for both Drake London and for Kyle Pitts. So definitely buy low on Kyle Pitts if people are still nervous. TJ Hawkinson is the other guy from this tier that kind of has a stake to be the Dynasty tight end 1 overall. He should see a big uptick in targets with Justin Jefferson out for the next couple of games, and he's got plenty of years left. He's just 26 years old, so he's a good option. Then we get into the tier 2 Cornerstone tight ends, and I would say these guys are really good investments if you don't have one of the Laporta, Kyle Pitts guys. If you're looking for a long-term tight end in a rebuild, I would go invest in some of these guys. Dalton Kincaid, Pat Freiermuth, Luke Musgrave, and Michael Mayer. Kincaid and Knox are flip-flopping routes and targets and performances right now, so we're not really seeing Dalton Kincaid get tight end 1 usage, but I will say he has looked like most rookie tight ends do. Don't get what Sam Laporta is doing and apply it to this is how all rookie tight ends should look going forward, because what Sam Laporta is doing is extremely rare, and what Dalton Kincaid is doing is more so along the lines with what we see out of rookie tight ends. Remember how good this tight end class was. Sam Laporta was like the 3rd or 4th best prospect in this class, depending on who you asked. Dalton Kincaid, Luke Musgrave, and Michael Mayer all have stakes to be very productive tight ends in the future. They're just developing. It's a hard position to transition right into the NFL for. Pat Freiermuth has regressed a little bit. Target share was a bit down so far this season at 11%. He's banged up right now. now, but I know he's a talented young tight end. In this situation, once it gets a major overhaul, because it looks like crap right now, Pat Freiermuth is a guy that should bounce back in the near future. Luke Musgrave, routes, snaps, targets, all there through the first 5 games. Actually tied for Christian Watson with the lead in targets on Monday Night Football this past week. Just need to see more from Luke Musgrave as far as his performance. Michael Mayer is still in a tight end by committee with Austin Hooper, but he did flash some big plays on Monday night as well. Not much to go off of with Michael Mayer. I'm basically just kind of leaning on his prospect profile because, in my opinion, he was the best tight end in the class, and on film and on paper. You got to downgrade him, though, because of what Laporta, Kincaid, and Musgrave have shown so far, but I do think Michael Mayer very easily, with a couple good games here down the stretch, could end up being a top 5, top 3 dynasty tight end if he performs down the stretch of the season. Then we get into the tier 3 tight ends, so I'll just go rapid fire with these ones. Cole Kmet, David Njoku, and Greg Dulcich. Cole Kmet, 2 big games in a row, 21% target share, consistent with what we've seen out of Cole Kmet so far in his career. He's been good at earning targets, and I think he's sneakily underrated. If you guys have him as like a tight end 2 or in like best ball leagues, dynasty best ball leagues, I really like Cole Kmet. David Njoku, he and Watson have been heating up a little bit. He's been a tad disappointing this year, but I'm still a believer in his talent and the contract he signed. Greg Dulcich has been on IR since week 1, so we haven't really get to see him this season. First chance to come back from his hamstring pull is this week, actually, and once he gets back on the field, I still am of the belief that he can be a great option this year and in Dynasty, so definitely go out and buy him low if you guys are rebuilding, sell off a contending asset for him. Then finally, we'll close it out with the tier 4 tight ends. All of these guys are kind of just meh. Like, I'm not excited about really any of them. Dalton Schultz, Jake Ferguson, Chig Okonkwo, and Cade Otton. With Chig Okonkwo and Cade Otton, they're getting decent usage, but we're not seeing the production follow. And then Dalton Schultz and Jake Ferguson have been more productive, but probably don't have the highest ceilings long term. So, bit of a longer video today. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this. Hopefully you got some value from it. Again, breaking down our Dynasty Cornerstone rankings is something that we love doing. We love talking about these rebuilding assets because we are always looking to build out long-term juggernauts in Dynasty, not just like win now redraft rosters. So if you enjoyed this video, if you got some value from it, leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. If you enjoyed the content, if you wanted to see more of like the trade values that you saw on the tier list for these tight ends, wide receivers, quarterbacks, and running backs, definitely check out our Dynasty Rankings Manifesto 2023 edition. You guys will find in there all of the trade value charts, all of the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end rankings, the ages of all these players so you can keep track of how old these guys are, buy, sell, hold advice according to Keep Trade Cut right now, as well as our 2024 rookie rankings, top 24 rookies right now, their age on draft night, their position, their measurables, all the information that you guys can need in Dynasty Fantasy Football, get you ready for the 2024 Dynasty offseason as well. So if that interests you, check that down below in the link in the pinned comment. That is available on flockfantasy.com. Use promo code FSE for 30% off. You'll also get our rest of season rankings for redraft. You'll also get our weekly rankings for redraft and a ton more Dynasty content from us, as well as Mason, Zach, and Badake, and all the other contributors there over on the Flock Fantasy family there. So definitely check that out if you're interested. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.